Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our onX office hours for February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. We're going to give it a couple of minutes just to let everyone get logged in and get settled and everything like that. Just a few housekeeping things. Your audio and video are turned off, so we can't see or hear you. So no worries if you got noise in the background or anything like that. If you do have questions, that's kind of the whole idea of this office hours is you, the audience, are directing this. So it's all based on the questions that we received today. So drop those in the Q&A bar down below so that we can answer as many of those as possible. We've got about an hour here today, so we'll get through as many questions as we can. My name is Jack. I work in the marketing department here at onX, based out of our Missoula office, and I'm joined by the guy who knows all the tech, basically, Jeff. Jeff, what's going on?
Good, good. Yeah, thanks, Jack. I don't know about all the tech, but I am work on the product team at onX here, defining features, working with the engineering team to get stuff built and then launched. So that's where I sit.
Awesome. Well, I see we have our first question in here from Brian. Jeff, I'm sure we're
Yeah.
expecting this one.
Yes,
When
we are.
will onX be available in Android Auto? Good question.
Yes, it is a really good question. Sorry, Brian. I know you've been patient, or maybe not. Maybe at this point we don't deserve your patience, but we have been working on this. Um, Android Auto is a little bit different beast than CarPlay on the iOS side. Unfortunately, Google has a bunch of different rules and stuff. The build that we just submitted to Google includes Android Auto, finally. And so I hope that this will make it out to you. Let's see, when does that release? In like a week, I think. Um, we have tried this before and they have rejected our app. And so we think we have all the issues resolved and we should be good to go. So hopefully, Brian, if you tune into our next one of these a month from now, you will have already been enjoying it. Um, and we can put the Android Auto questions behind us, which I know Jack will be happy with.
Very, yes. All right. A question from James. I want to see public land data layer for Guam. That's a new one
Hmm.
for me. I've seen a couple folks ask about Puerto Rico, but not Guam, to hunt sandbar deer more effectively. I didn't even know they had those on Guam. James, I don't believe we have really any public lands data for the overseas territories except maybe some Fish and Wildlife Service, like refuges and things like that. Um, we can't really, he mentioned like scanned maps to digitize the data. We don't really have the ability to do that, but I can get in touch with our mapping team, our GIS folks, and see if there is some sort of digitized data set already out there for Guam, to see if we can get that into the app. We advertise having coverage in the United States. Guam is a territory of the States, so that would be something interesting to pull in for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, we can for sure look at that. Um, uh, PJ asks, is there an easy way to my waypoints? And I assume you mean to select your waypoints. Anyways, that's what I'll assume because I think the second part, sometimes I want to move them 30 to 50 feet. So one way that you can do that is just select the waypoint, on the waypoint card, hit the edit button, and then you can tap a new spot on the map and it will move to that new spot. If you only want to move it 30 feet, you're gonna have to zoom in pretty far. But that still should be possible.
I'm pulling it up here. I can kind of demo how to do that on my tablet here. So if I tap on the waypoint here, hit edit, all I'm doing, you can't really see it, but I'm just tapping the map You can see the waypoints moving around, so the closer you zoom in, the more exact you can be. Once I get it where I want it, I just hit save, and now it's been edited there. I don't know why it kicked me out of the app, but probably an issue with this device and Zoom running too much at one time. Anyway,
And then a similar question from Brian, put a bunch of waypoints in a particular area. Is there an easy way to put just that area into a folder? And there is, Brian, very similar to what Jack just did. Jack, if you could pull that back up, there's a select all on screen button that you can use and adjust the size of your screen so it includes all of those uh, things that you want to select, and you can select all of them at once. So I think if you tap my content, oh, select all in frame. Yep, you did. Yep. And you
yep.
just hit select all in frame. And now you can do bulk items on those things. And one of those is add to folder. So
I just added them to a test folder there. You could also make a brand new folder if you wanted. And then to share, you can just tap the share button, hit share, and then go from there, just like if you were sharing a single waypoint or something like that.
yep. Circling back a little bit, Ken, how do I get north up on my screen? Jack can actually demo that right now. If you just tap there's a little crosshairs button at the very bottom. If you tap that and it shows up blue like this, you're going to have north up.
So if you're looking at it like this, where it's kind of line of sight, whatever direction, this is a tablet here or your phone, whatever direction it's facing is up. If that's what you're seeing, if you want to get back to north, you can just tap that location button one more time, and then north is up for you. The compass does disappear, so if you don't see that compass in your upper right-hand corner, that means north is up. If you do see it, that's how you can kind of tell what direction the app is facing there. That's kind of your compass rose in the top right there. Let's see. Jason asked, this is a common question we get. Use onX on a tablet or iPhone, the screen does not auto-rotate. Is this something that could be accomplished? So we don't have landscape mode built into the app right now. That may be something we do in the future, but for right now, Jason, it is just in portrait mode on those mobile devices.
Yep. Let's see, what's next?
I see you had one here about latitude and longitude coordinates you wanted to talk about, Jeff?
Yep, we can do that. And that's pretty easy to demo, Jack, from the screen that you have there. You can just.
Yep. So for those watching, in the upper right-hand corner of my screen, right below my battery indicator, there's that icon that looks like a magnifying glass. I'm going to tap that. And then I'm going to make sure location is selected here. So you have two options, private land and location. I'm going to select location. That's where if you copy and pasted coordinates, maybe a friend texted them to you or you're pulling them from some other source, you can just type them in up there. I have one here that I've used before. So I'm just going to select it. Once you type it in and hit enter, you're going to get some results that show, you see I have two results. If you're not getting any results or it's not looking quite right, double check your formatting. We do recommend using decimal format. And then that second number has to have a minus sign, a negative sign in front of it. That's what brings you to the Western Hemisphere. If that would have said 45 and then 100, it would put us over in like Europe or Asia somewhere. So then from here, select that result. I'm going to pick the first one. That's going to bring me over to this location by Gettysburg, South Dakota. That's 45.000 minus 100.000. from there, if you want to add a waypoint or do whatever you need to do on that point, you can. I've got the query card down below here. Might be hard to see through Zoom a little bit, gets cut off sometime, but I can just hit the add waypoint button and save a waypoint on that spot if it's something I want to see in the future.
The other thing is it's also possible to copy and paste those lat longs into the search bar. So if a friend has some coordinates for you or wants to share something from a text message or however you're doing it, you can also just copy that lat long from some other program, paste it in the search bar, and you'll immediately go to that location, very similar to what Jack just did here.
Yep. And you can just, if you want to send something to somebody without sending a full waypoint, you can just hit that copy button and text that to somebody as well.
Yep.
Okay. There's a question from Sydney. I noticed that the wording on each landowner does not increase when you zoom into that location. Hard to read on the phone and computer. So that's good feedback there, Sydney. The reason for that is mostly so that when you really zoom in, like if I zoom in on Missoula here, you can see we've got, a neighborhood here, a bunch of different houses. If we kept making those names bigger and bigger, it would start to clog up the map. And if that font got really big, it'd be really tough to tell what name is on which property. Kind of unique, obviously, being in town here with the smaller properties. So that is something I know has been kind of talked about, is how you balance that, making it large enough so that it's readable, but not so large that it obscures the map. So that's why it is the way it is right now. But that's something we're always kind of looking at to try to make things easier for folks to read, easier for folks to see. So maybe that's a problem we can work on solving at some point in the future.
Oh, let's see, where are we? Color schemes for waypoints, Brian's question. Yeah, right now this is a tough balance, Brian, between having an interface that's really simple to pick from versus, I'm sure you've seen some of the schemes that, I don't know, other applications use, Google and other sorts of things, Microsoft applications in Word and all, where you can select essentially an infinite number of colors. They just become really cumbersome on a mobile phone. And when you're trying to save a waypoint quickly, when you're out in the field or whatever, it's just a balance between making it super simple, pick what you want and go, and trying to drill into some interface where there's essentially too many different colors. We also have filtering that's built in now that you can filter, and if there's not a set number of colors, then that becomes almost impossible. So there's a couple other things to think through here. I'm not saying we would not do this, but so far we have biased toward keeping it simpler for the majority of customers, recognizing that there are some folks probably like you who have some more advanced ideas and would be able to utilize something. So I'm not saying it's off the table, but right now our bias is toward simplicity. So.
Got a question from Lynn. Sounds like kind of a technical issue on WebMap. I'm having issues with onX Hunt opening completely on my laptop. I see everything except the satellite land waypoints, just a white screen. First thing that tells me, Lynn, we have seen some browsers having issues. A lot of times it's been like a caching issue. So what I would do first of all is double check, see if you have a different browser you could try. Like if you're using Firefox, try Chrome or Safari or something like that. If it persists, if you're only seeing it like on Chrome, for example, you could try clearing your browser history, clear the cache and the cookies and all that. Many times that will fix that issue. If that still doesn't, I would recommend shooting us an email. This is an email I should have mentioned at the top of the class. Our customer support team is more than willing to help out. You can give them a call or shoot them an email. In that case, Lynn, an email with a screenshot of what you're seeing is going to be best. That email address is help@onxmaps.com. So one more time for everybody. If you need to email our customer support, it's help, HELP, @onxmaps.com. So double check your browser history, clear that out, clear your cache and cookies there, Lynn. If that doesn't work, shoot us an email. Those folks are answering questions like that all day, every day, so they'll be able to get you taken care of and get everything working for you.
Yep. And speaking of our customer service people, Brandon, you asked a question about folders. Last year, there was a feature where you could put all the items you created into a folder. This seems to be removed. It shouldn't have been. I mean, Jack just demoed how to add a bunch of items to a folder all at once. So if that's for some reason not there for you, or that question didn't get answered with the other demo that Jack just did, that help at onxmaps.com is the right team to reach out to. They will be able to get you squared away and figure out what's going on with your particular app. But we didn't take those away. It's still there. So if you can't see it, definitely reach out to customer service. So,
and one thing to check is, I don't think this would be applicable to your case, Brandon, but always a good thing if you're having issues with the app, no matter what the issue is double check that you're on the most up-to-date version. If you're on an old version, that can cause some issues. So I don't know if maybe you're on a different device and has an older version that doesn't have folders or something. Long shot in your case, Brandon, doesn't sound like it, but just for everybody else listening, that's something that's good to check once in a while, is make sure you're on the most up-to-date version so you get all the new features and so you have all the latest and greatest performance improvements and things like that.
right above that, David asks, how up-to-date accurate is the public and private land information? Obviously, we get this question a lot. Unfortunately, David, the answer that you probably don't want to hear is it depends. And the reason is some counties, for, say, private land data, we have a direct connection to through our software, and those updates happen very fast. Other counties are still using paper, and they send us or make available paper. Other counties, and there's some of these in Washington, and I think there's a few others around, that have no private data, land data published at all. So if you look on onX now in Eastern Washington, you'll see a big block of no private land. Well, that county just happens to not publish any information. So we run the gamut between no information at all and information that is sourced to us electronically that we can update almost in real time. And so it really depends on the county that that your property is in, on how frequently that process is going to occur. In general, we at least make an attempt to update every county, and there's 3,000, you may know, Jack, 500-ish counties in the United States. We attempt to update every one of those every year, and we have about a third to a half of those that are counties where most of y'all live and use onX Hunt, and we try to update those counties every quarter. So that's in general where we are. So it depends. And I don't know, Jack, if I answered that properly and you'd have anything to add.
No, I think you covered it pretty good. The only thing I was going to add is we do have the ability for users to submit error reports within the app. So if you do, see something that's incorrect, if you purchased property, last year and it hasn't updated yet, if you purchased yesterday, maybe give us a little bit of time to get it updated. But I'm just going to tap on a parcel here to show you what that process looks like. So Tapped on a private parcel, it pulls up this query card here with the ownership information. Let's just say that this is now outdated. Along the bottom of my screen, I'm going to tap where it says report an error. And then it's just going to take you through a series of questions so that we can kind of get a sense of what's going on here. Is this private land, government land? So I'm going to hit private. What's changed? Most commonly, it's the landowner name. Sometimes it may be the boundary lines. Maybe we have the acreage totally wrong. Let's just say private landowner name for the purposes of this demonstration. And then the more information you can give us, the better. So if you know the current landowner, let's say, especially if it's you, first name, last name. If there's a secondary landowner, put that in there. Including the screenshot always helps. And then once you type that in, that button that says report errors will light up. You can hit that, and then that will get sent to our mapping folks. They'll take that in, they'll verify that with the county, or if you're in a parish in Louisiana or a borough in Alaska, we verify all of those errors that come in. And then once we're able to verify that, we get those changes updated in the app as soon as we can. That isn't an instant process. It can take, sometimes when you're working with local government, you got to work at the speed of local government, which can be quite fast. It can be quite slow, just depending on who you're working with. So it can take some time to get that updated, but we will kind of keep you up to date. And once we have things corrected, you'll see that update on your end there. So that's how you report an error to us if you do see something that's outdated or has changed.
Yep. Christian asks about a way to automatically add paths as a way to travel. If you are an onX Elite customer, then we have a feature today called Route Builder that will allow you to do just that. We will allow you to route on pretty much any motorized road in the United States, and many marked or identified trails that you could use your feet on rather than a motor vehicle. A lot of 2-track, single tracks, all that kind of stuff as well. I forget how many hundreds of thousands of miles of roads and trails we have today. And maybe, Jack, if you can demonstrate that, we will snap to your route so you can do it. You asked an interesting second part of that, though, and thank you for this clarification, Christian. You hunt private land that has logging roads. I will have to check and see if we actually support private like that. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but Route Builder would be the thing that would solve this problem in general for most people.
Yeah, so let's demo a quick route here. So what I did along the bottom of my screen, I tapped the tools button, and then in the top right corner of that card, it says build route. So I'm going to tap that, and then you can kind of see I've got a crosshair in the middle of my screen here. So I'm just going to start right outside of the onX office. I'm going to tap the map, and then I'm going to zoom out, and I'm just going to run us out to, we'll just go out here. Let's say this is where I want to go. I want to get to this trailhead. Now you can see I've got a red dot there. I've got a little bit of a heavier black line there that you can see. If I hit save, that route is now saved. So I can see the route from Missoula to that spot there. Okay, so that's going to be, motorized roads. The one caveat to this is I know that road there, it is more of a Jeep road. So you do want to double check. Don't just take this kind of as gospel of that's the way to go. You might want to double check and see, all right, this is a motorized road, but can my vehicle go on it? Double check some of those things. But that's a quick demonstration of the route builder. What you can also do, I don't believe we do have all the data for like private lands, for logging roads and things like that. You can kind of go old school. This is what I used to do quite often, was I would use the line distance tool, and I would do that on my computer because I could use a mouse and it was a lot easier to draw exact routes with the mouse. So on like private land, if you're trying to draw all the routes out to your deer stands, if you kind of know where they are by looking at the map, you can use that line distance tool to draw that as well. So that might be another way to kind of get at, the same end result. Let's see, what else do we have here? See some stuff we've touched on already. If another user from onX Hunt sends you a waypoint, currently you cannot edit and change formatting and other characteristics of the waypoint sent. When will this editing be available? I talked with someone about this issue about 4 years ago. So this was, you used to be able to do this in onX, if I'm remembering correctly, Jeff. I've been here a while.
Mhm.
But you used to be able to send a waypoint, and then like if I sent one to Jeff, then he could then turn around and send that to somebody or make changes. It was a few years ago we changed that. So it's kind of like if you're familiar with using shared Google Docs in the workspace or in school or something, where if I own the document, I own the waypoint, other people aren't able to make edits to it and they're not able to send that to other people. So the plus side of that is if I send Jeff a waypoint and I only want him to have that waypoint and not all of his buddies, he can't turn around and then send that same waypoint to somebody else. Of course, if you want to be able to edit a waypoint somebody sent to you, Randy, the workaround for that, what I would do is, let's say a buddy sent you a waypoint and you want to be able to go in and change the color of it, add photos, change the name, et cetera, et cetera. I would just place another waypoint on that spot and delete the shared one. So now you still have that spot marked and now you own it and you can, change what you want on that waypoint if you want to, put it into folders and change colors and make all those other edits. So that's kind of my best advice for a workaround.
Yeah. Again, this comes back to the question of sort of simplicity versus adding more complexity to the app. If you work in any sort of environment and you use, say, Google Documents online, there's 4 or 5 different permissions that you can set on each document. And I mean, even for us internally, and we work in this stuff every day, half the time when somebody shares a document with you and wants your comments, you can't edit it because they set the permissions wrong. And so that's the trade-off of adding a whole bunch of different permission settings under sharing. And what we have biased towards so far is keep it really simple. You share, the person who gets it really can't edit it or change it or reshare it. There is, we think, a case to be made for a very simple, I'm just going to share a waypoint with Jack. I don't care what he does with it. It's his. He owns it. Once I share it, it becomes his, and he can do whatever he wants to with it. That is likely something that you will see soon, but much more complex than keep it locked down so he can do nothing with it, or make it completely open and free and it just belongs to him. Those are likely the 2 options we will go after. Again, to keep it simple so that when you're, out in the field or whatever you're doing and you're in a hurry, it's just a really simple thing for you to go through and do the sharing that you want to do and not have a bunch of choices get in your way as you're trying to use the app. So that's where we are with that one.
Got a question here from Edward. Is there a way to get accurate current conditions in the map so that I don't have to switch out to use Moultrie Mobile or some other app with weather built in to get the current conditions? Yes,
Always.
there is, Edward. Go ahead, Jeff. I cut you off.
No, this is a great one. Because we're getting ready to make some pretty substantial changes to weather that y'all are going to see in another few weeks. What you notice now in the upper right-hand corner um, of Jack's screen is a little weather button, and that's going to show you some weather information. Well, that weather information is pulled from a weather station that in this case happens to be 3.7 miles away from where Jack is sitting right now, which is good. It'll give you an overview. But if Jack was sitting in his tree stand or wanted to know what the weather was in his tree stand, being 3.7 miles away from a weather station is probably not the going to give you the most accurate current conditions or forecast. And so we're going to update this again in a couple of weeks. And you will see this when you get your app updates in early March. You will see weather that is calculated similar to what he just did right now, which is for a specific latitude and longitude. So wherever you tap on the map, or if you have a waypoint, the weather information that you see is going to be calculated for that exact point, not a weather station that's who knows how far away. We have about 150,000 weather stations in the app today, so there's good coverage, but that is not the same thing as having a hyper local conditions and forecast for a very specific latitude and longitude. And so you will see those changes in our app, like I said, within the next couple of weeks. This is how if you look at weather on web today, onX web, you will see this same behavior today that is already out. And we're going to bring those changes to mobile. So now anywhere you click on the map or anywhere you look, you get a forecast and current conditions for that exact spot. We're super excited about this. It's going to be a way more useful tool to you. If the nearest weather station is 3,000 feet lower than where you're looking or whatever, you're just going to have a much better forecast and conditions than are being delivered today. So we're super excited about this, and that's coming very soon.
There was another question I saw that just came in asking about adding lunar phases to weather. We do have those in there. You just might have to scroll down a little bit farther. It is at the bottom of the screen there, but if you scroll all the way down, there are your moon phases if you want to take a peek at that.
Brian Buckingham, with the new Fish app, is it going to be a separate purchase or will it be included with the Elite membership? We're still debating this. You might see both. We're not exactly sure yet. I think we'll figure that out. There is a lot of talk about bundling this with Hunt just simply because so many hunters are anglers and vice versa. And so we think there's a really good synergy between these two tools. So we're gonna make it as easy as possible for onX Hunt folks to get their hands on fish as well. So, but exactly how that works right now, I don't think we've decided. So.
I see one here John's talking about. I think he's referring back to the counties that don't have property ownership information in there. Anything that can be done locally to encourage counties to share that info. In my experience, John, and I used to work in this field a little bit with onX of acquiring that data, and I would talk with some of these counties. Most of the time, it's a funding and resources issue that they don't have that information available. A lot of times, they just don't have the ability to hire a person or a team to digitize that data and to do all of the upkeep and all of the the required stuff that you need to have to build that digital data set. People say with local government, a lot of times the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's probably not something they hear all that often from their constituents of, hey, I want a digitized parcel data set. So the more people ask for that, and as long as they get the funding that they need to be able to do that, the resources that they need, hopefully more counties will come online with that. So short of, showing up to a council meeting or something like that, I think that's probably your best option.
Yep.
And I did,
James,
go
well,
ahead.
James has a question, wants a hot tip. What's your top filter or data layer for Western elk hunting? That's a good one. I think there probably are as many answers to that, or maybe as many as there are elk hunters. But I will tell you, for me, the top one is going to be the slope angle layer, which you should find under land and access in the layer menu. What this is going to show you is a color-coded, it's a little bit stretched across the top of your screen, but it's going to show you a color-coded um, picture of the slope angle that we calculate for that specific spot. And the way I use this is look for areas of steeper slope. So something in the orange to red category that have either green or maybe yellow, but flatter areas contained within them. Um, and and those will be benches. If you turn on, you can also do this using the topo map, obviously, by looking at the distance between the lines. But those are going to be benches of flatter areas located on steeper areas. These are areas that elk like to bed. And especially like early in the season when it's warm, you find some of those areas that are on the north sides of slopes. You increase your odds of bumping into an elk that's using that bench on a north facing slope, probably in the shade during the hottest part of the day, as a bedding area. So that'd be my one hot tip. I don't know, Jack, if you have a different one.
My usual go-to is I really like to hunt logged areas. So I use the timber cuts layer. So if I go to trees, crops, and cover, I turn on the timber cuts layer. Um, every time I turn this layer on, Jeff, I have trouble finding an example. I need to mark a waypoint. There's some. So it's going to look like that. It's on national forest land. Anytime a canopy's been disturbed, whether it's through logging, whether it's through fire, if it's a windstorm, I probably don't want to hunt it because it's going to be all kinds of blowdown. And that is just, if you've hunted it, it's awful to hike through. But a lot of these logged areas with burns, anytime that canopy's opened up, you're going to get sunlight reaching the forest floor. So you're going to get that fresh green growth. Here, these logged areas are 12 years old. So they're probably getting grown up already. But if you can find one that's maybe 2, 3, 4 years old, that's good for elk, for deer. I do quite a bit of grouse hunting. Hunt the edges of those can be good. So that's one that I use quite a bit is the timber cuts, at least to have an area to hone in on and see if there's some animals enjoying that fresh vegetation.
Yeah, so we two different answers, two different people, probably everybody you ask. You could say the same thing about the wildfire layer. Jack mentioned that. You can turn that on and see where wildfires are. Um, the other thing that's sometimes useful is if you have areas of public land that border private land, turn on some of the crop layers that show up under crop distribution. And if you can find, a private land area that has some good food on it and an area near there of public land that might represent, say, a bedding area or something for elk, that's also another way that you can maybe get on the public part of that land and either intercept or find them in a bedding area. Yeah, there's a lot of potential ideas here, and a lot of layers to explore, and you're kind of only limited by, what you can dig into and how you think about it yourself. So
Here's a question, Jeff. I don't know how much we can say just yet, but Ben has a new set of Leica Pro binos with the Pro Tracker mapping that integrates with some apps, asking if there are plans for onX to integrate with Leica binos potentially in the future.
not specifically with Leica today. But I think the idea, and I'm not familiar with those Leicas. There there has been a lot of discussion internally about interfacing to rangefinders and range-finding binoculars. That's a super interesting idea. You may, well, you may see something like that shortly in the future. Um, but right now, not with Leica. So sorry about that. Um, Carl asked, I think, a quick question. How did you get to land and access?
Good
So
question.
in the bottom left corner of your map, you're going to see a layers button. You tap it, uh, pull that card up, and you'll see states you've turned on, and then a number of different sections or categories of layers that we've tried to group in ways that make sense. So current conditions, land and access, roads, trails, and rec points, and then trees, crops, and cover. So hopefully, Carl, that addresses that.
Mhm.
Um, Mike, this is an interesting question. Can we get an in-depth webinar on group collaboration? Maybe one on property management and planning. Um, we have a 1,200 acre property, need better to keep track of stands, trails, sanctuary areas, cameras, food plots, etc. I love that idea. There are a lot of tools inside onX that will help you do that. And this is an area that we are really focusing on now in the first half of this year. And so maybe um, during uh, during the second half of the year, when we have some new things out that we think you're going to really like, we should sit down and have a webinar and go through those, Jack. I like this idea. So thanks,
Yeah,
Mike.
I'm gonna pencil that in on the schedule for sometime this summer so that we don't forget about it and we remember to put something like that together. That's a great idea. Right below that, Josh asked a question. He must know that I'm already thinking about bear season. So I got to answer this one. We're planning our
Okay.
first Montana spring bear hunt this year, central part of the state. With the lack of snow this year, do you have any tips for e-scouting that we may want to try with this year's weather? Any other spring bear tips? So first thing I would mention is definitely keep your eye on the weather. We do not have very much snow across most of Montana this year. That can change. We can get a ton of snow in March and April still. So definitely keep your eye on that. As far as e-scouting goes, use that slope angle. That's still a pretty good tool for spring bear hunting. The classic kind of spring bear habitat everyone talks about is look for south facing slopes that are open. Again, you can use that fire in that timber cut layer. I've also just done a scan of imagery to look for like avalanche slides. We don't have a layer for that, but avalanche slides are another classic spring bear habitat. I would also say, depending on the time that you're coming, don't necessarily just be stuck to south facing slopes, especially if you're coming, latter half of May, early part of June, most of the state of Montana. Um, I guess we kind of have two closing dates for bear in Montana, depending where you are. It's typically going to be May 31st or June 15th, you know, except for there's a few quota areas where once they hit a certain quota, female bears, they close it down. But I'm going to guess you're probably not going to those areas. You can find bears on north facing slopes, east facing slopes, west facing slopes. So, especially later in the year, that's all going to be green. So, those are good places to look as well. Any place that has that green growth. And then the other two things that seem to really hold bears, in my experience, and I'm far from an expert, but I've been doing it a few years now. Bears need food, so that could be, I mean, it could be a dead carcass from the winter. Most commonly, it's going to be that green grass. It could be, I've seen bears flipping over rocks to find larvae, bugs, beetles, things like that. But then a couple things people overlook is water. I like to hunt creek drainages, coulees, things like that have water running through them, which in the spring is quite a few of them. But then also nearby thick cover. Bears don't necessarily love to be out where they're exposed. They do like to have some thicker cover nearby, both for to get out of the sun. If you got a big winter black fur coat on in May or June, you're going to want to find some shade. And then also to, potentially get away from danger, things like that. So I've spent many a spring day staring at a wide open hillside that's full of green grass and not seen any bears, to kind of come to the realization of, man, there's no cover within a mile of this place. So you might see a bear there, but those small pockets seem to really be good where they can get out and feed and then they can jump back into the brush if they need to. Other than that, I mean, have fun. I love spring bear hunting. It's one of my favorite things to do every year. It's just a fun hunt. It can be as relaxing or as strenuous as you want it to be. So, if this is your first hunt, I would say have patience, but also move around a little bit. If you're coming out for a week, 10 days, and you sit a glassing spot for maybe an evening and a morning and you don't see anything, I would recommend trying to bounce around to some different spots until you find where that activity is. Don't sit on a place too long if you're not seeing good bear sign or bear activity. That was a long-winded response. I love bear hunting.
Yep. There's probably another tool. If you're an onX Elite customer, you have access to another feature called recent imagery. And I know in a lot of areas, there is some more limited snow this year, which is not a good thing, actually. However, there are areas that do have snow. And if you go to recent imagery, what you're going to see is a picture that is no older than 2 weeks. And so you're going to see where the snow line is. And you're going to be able to watch that every 2 weeks as we update that imagery to keep track of where the snow line is. So you may not have a lot of snow where you are, but you may, and this would be a good tool to use to keep an eye on the snow line on the slopes that you're interested in hunting. So that would be a tool that's potentially available to you as well. And while you're there, Jack, Rich has a question. Can you show how to remove leaves from trees in wooded areas?
Yes.
That is also located on that same base map screen. And if you turn the leaf off imagery toggle on, you will see for areas of the country that we've been able to source such imagery, you will be able to see images that have no leaves on the trees. This is also an elite feature. And so you will need to be an onX Elite customer. Unfortunately, this imagery is not cheap, and so it is available to you though as an Elite customer, and you reach that through the base map card, which is in the lower right-hand corner of your app screen and on the web as well. It's available on the web as well.
I see Brian just asked, when will leaf off be available in more areas? I know that's somewhat dependent on if imagery is available in an area. I don't know that it is available everywhere in the country, but you might be able to speak to that more, Jeff.
Yeah, I forget how many states we have now, 12 or 14. I think we've identified sources of leaf off imagery for a further 6 or 8 states. Obviously, this doesn't apply to a lot of states, Texas, Arizona, and stuff that don't have deciduous trees. So we are focusing on those areas, obviously, in the more in the eastern part of the United States that do support this. And we're going to continue to roll that out as quickly as we can. As often as we can identify new sources of data. So if you're not supported now, I don't have, we probably do need to build a way to notify customers when we add leaf off imagery for a specific area. That actually is a good point that I will take back, or Jack, we can take back to marketing to figure out like how do we notify customers so that you don't have to just randomly check back in, that you'll actually know.
Yeah.
So we can take that as an action, but we are adding new areas all the time. So yeah.
We've got about 10 minutes left here. I'm going to post a giveaway link in the chat down below. So we're giving away some onX Hunt hats. So that link is in the chat right there for everybody who wants to enter to win a free hat. Should just take you a few seconds to fill out your name and email and shipping information. That giveaway is going to be open until 2:59 p.m. Mountain Standard Time today. So get you about 3 hours or so to get entered, and then I'll send emails out to everybody later this afternoon, and we'll get those hats sent out to you. So if you want to get entered, links in the chat there. We'll post it one more time before we close out today.
Yeah. Jeff asks, he has to log into the onX Hunt research tools, even though he's already logged into onX. We didn't already address that, Jeff. You should perhaps have to do that the very first time you open the research tools tab, but you shouldn't have to after that. So maybe it's a good time to reinforce the link to customer service, Jack, because if you're still having problems, Jeff, I would say probably ought to contact customer service and let them start looking into your issue and see if they can figure out maybe what's going on for you.
Yeah, so Jeff, again, that email is help@onxmaps.com. I'm also just going to type that in the Q&A here so that you can find it. But for everybody else watching, help@onxmaps.com. That's our customer support team, so they'll get you taken care of. Then
And
Jeff did ask, will this recording be available
yeah,
to you later? Yes, it will be. We'll send an email to everybody. That email comes from Zoom, so it's not going to say like an onX Maps email. It'll be through the Zoom program. So be on the lookout for that. Sometimes they do get filtered into spam, so check that. But you'll get that tomorrow. It gets sent 24 hours after class time, so you'll get that tomorrow, around this same time.
couple questions in here about driving directions. As with both CarPlay and Android Auto, we have been looking at our off-road app as sort of a test bed for those features. A very similar thing will happen with driving directions. But that is definitely something that is underway, and I don't have a date for that right now, but if you're an off-road customer, you might see it there first, but we will eventually have that on Hunt as well. So
Speaking of driving, question from David in here. I have difficulty finding routes into some public areas. On the map, it looks like there is access, but when I go on location, there's a gate and it is closed off. Is there a way to avoid these disappointments? So this has happened to me. So I'm going to say yes and no, David. There's going to be some gates that we don't really have open and closed data for. There's a lot of Forest Service roads. We're in Missoula, Montana. A lot of old logging roads out here that have gates on them that are, I've never seen them open. They probably haven't been opened for years. But on your main roads, if you turn on your motorized roads and trails layer, so if you go into hunt map layers, go into roads, trails, and rec, scroll down and turn on motorized roads and trails, you're going to see them start to show on public land like this purple and white trail here. What you can do is you can tap on it. So I've actually been caught at this gate before. If you tap on the road, scroll down a little bit, it's going to tell you the name of that road, Skyline Drive, 6.6 miles, and then it's going to give you those open and closed dates. So this one doesn't open until May 16th. I remember I was driving out there one time. I think I was just trying to get outside, for a nice day, maybe look for some shed antlers or something. Drove out there and it was closed because it was like May 5th. I'm like, oh man, I got 11 more days until it opens up. So a lot of those roads are closed seasonally, either for, in Montana, we close a lot of them to coincide with hunting seasons in the fall. They'll close right before rifle season or something. And then a lot of them are closed in the spring just because of maybe there's an elk herd that winters there, or there's some sensitive wildlife. They don't want a lot of motorized vehicles in the area. So for those main roads, these purple and white ones, David, yep, tap on it. That'll tell you the open and closed. If it's more of a road like this you see here, that's kind of those dotted lines, a lot of those are still able to be traveled on by motor vehicle, but they're not really maintained by the Forest Service, and we don't have data on when those gates are open and closed. So unfortunately, those you do kind of have to go out there and check.
Mhm. And then Christian, back all the way back up to the top, because you asked again at the bottom as well. So thank you for bringing that back up. Is there a way to calibrate the phone in onX when marking a waypoint as it moves quite a bit, even if I'm just standing still? This is going to be really dependent on the GPS signal that we're getting from your phone. Different phones have different technology in their GPS receivers. More expensive phones may have better receivers, maybe not. We don't really know how Apple and Google are building their devices. We request a GPS fix from the phone operating system itself. And so we're displaying what we get back from them. And if you're in heavy tree cover or in a canyon, or I've seen this a lot, even on like with Google Maps when trying to say walk around or navigate in a city where you have a bunch of tall buildings, like anytime you get obstructions to your GPS signal, the accuracy of it is going to decrease and it's going to move around a lot more. And so one thing you can do is if you start tracker running on your device, we will change the way we request GPS data from the phone, and it should be more accurate at that point. And then your dot should steady up. You can drop your waypoint, or you can do whatever it is you want to do, and then you can exit tracker just like what Jack did there. But there are a lot of variables on this, depending upon how old your phone is and a bunch of other stuff. And so there's no real calibration you can run, but it is going to depend on all those external factors. So maybe that doesn't help, but that's how we're able to get that information from the phone. So.
And there are a couple of phone settings. I know our customer support team walks folks through this. I believe it's on iPhones where you can have it enabled precise location. That could be something you might try checking in your location services there, Christian. That can affect it as well. And so will, if you're in a battery saver mode, that can sometimes affect the accuracy of that. We've seen that happen in some rare occasions where if you go into a power save mode or something, it might not be quite as accurate. Well, we are at about time here. I apologize to everybody whose questions we couldn't get to today. We try to get through as many as we can. Again, if you do have some of the technical questions, if you have any questions on your account or anything like that, shoot us an email, help@onxmaps.com. We're happy to help out with that. I'm also going to put a link in the chat right now for our upcoming classes. Tomorrow evening, I am doing an onX Hunt 101. We do those just about every month, where it's a hour and a half class of kind of the very basics of using onX Hunt. So if you're more of an experienced user, maybe not as applicable to you, but we run through how to use layers, how to save offline maps, marking waypoints, changing the base maps, running the tracker, using the compass mode, all of that. So at that link I just put in the chat, there is all of our upcoming classes. We've got the 101. We also have some upcoming classes with the folks from Hunt and Fool going over the mule deer and antelope draws. So things like that. We're always updating that list. So check back there for the upcoming scheduled classes. You can get signed up for all of those. And with that, just want to thank Jeff again for joining me. And thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll do another one of these next month. Don't have date finalized just yet, but we hope to see you on a future class.